The untold past of Kody Brown. From small-town boy to college heartbreak. A reality TV star with a past few knew. When fans of Sister Wives tune in every season, they usually expect to see the drama of plural marriage, shifting alliances, strained family dinners, and the balancing act of one man with multiple wives. Over the years, Kody Brown, the patriarch of the Brown family, has been painted in many shades. Sometimes as the charming leader trying to hold his unconventional household together, and other times as the stubborn, prideful man who alienates those closest to him. But before the TLC cameras, before the multiple marriages, before the debates about faith and polygamy, there was another Kody Brown, a younger, more vulnerable man who carried scars from a college romance that he has now described as both life-changing and devastating. In a recent reflection, Kody Brown opened up about the woman he lost his virginity to, a relationship from his college days that continues to haunt him even decades later. For a man who has built his entire public persona around faith, marriage, and morality, this revelation shocked fans and reignited curiosity about who Kody really is beneath the layers of religious doctrine and reality TV fame. Early life before fame. Kody Brown was born on January 17, 1969, in Lavelle, Wyoming. Raised in a Mormon family, his upbringing was steeped in conservative values, a strong sense of faith, and the constant push and pull between religious ideals and personal desires. His father, William Brown, was a polygamist himself, which meant Kody grew up in an environment where plural marriage wasn't a taboo. It was a way of life. Still, like many young men, Kody's teenage years were filled with confusion, questions, and the desire to carve out his own identity. While he often references his strict religious upbringing on Sister Wives, what viewers rarely heard until now was the story of his first real romance. A romance that defined his early adulthood in ways he hadn't publicly shared. College days. Searching for identity. Kody attended college in the late 1980s, a period that was culturally transformative across America. The nation was moving from the conservative Reagan era into the boldness of the 1990s. For young adults, it was a time of experimentation, self-discovery, and pushing back against tradition. Kody, however, arrived at college with the weight of his faith and family name. By all accounts, he was charismatic, energetic, and eager to experience the wider world outside of Wyoming. College gave him freedom, but it also exposed him to the challenges of relationships outside his sheltered upbringing. It was there, in the middle of his college journey, that he met a woman who would change his life. The woman who stole his heart. Little is known about the identity of the woman. Kody has chosen not to reveal her name publicly. But what we do know, based on his own recounting, is that she was his first serious girlfriend. She wasn't part of his polygamist religious circle. She wasn't bound by the same strict codes of morality that defined his early years. Their relationship was passionate, emotional, and for Kody, overwhelming. In his own words, she was the one he lost his virginity to, a moment that carried far more weight for him than it might for many others. Why? Because in Kody's faith tradition, sex before marriage was considered a sin, a stain on purity, and something that could separate him from God's blessing. For Kody, the act wasn't just physical. It was spiritual, emotional, and deeply tied to his sense of worth as a man of faith. Confession and inner conflict. Kody's first sexual experience didn't bring him joy or liberation. Instead, it plunged him into conflict. On one hand, he felt genuine love and attraction toward this woman. On the other, he was consumed by guilt, shame, and fear of how this would affect his relationship with God and his future within his religious community. He later admitted that after losing his virginity, he spiraled into self-doubt. He worried he had ruined his chances of being a righteous husband, and questioned whether he was worthy of the kind of plural family his father had modeled. For Kody, purity wasn't just about himself. It was about the legacy he was supposed to carry forward. This inner turmoil only intensified as the romance deepened. The more he loved her, the more he feared losing himself, not just emotionally but spiritually. Why it was devastating. Most people remember their first love as bittersweet. For Kody, it was devastating because it symbolized both his awakening and his undoing. In his own reflections, he described the eventual breakup as one of the most painful moments of his life. The woman he thought might be his forever partner wasn't meant to stay. Their relationship collapsed under the pressure of differing values, expectations, and the simple reality that young love often doesn't last. But the devastation wasn't just about losing her. It was about what he believed he lost within himself. Kody carried a sense of guilt that lingered long after the romance ended. He believed he had compromised his faith, his purity, and his worthiness in God's eyes. This wound shaped the man who would later become the Kody Brown viewers know today. Seeds of his future choices. In many ways, the heartbreak became a turning point. After the breakup, Kody leaned harder into his faith. He re-embraced the idea of plural marriage as not just a choice, but as a calling, a way to prove himself righteous and redeem what he thought he had lost. Some fans speculate that his strict, almost authoritarian approach to relationships later in life can be traced back to this college romance. By clinging tightly to rules, structures, and religious frameworks, Kody may have been trying to protect himself from ever feeling that kind of loss again. Public revelation. Why now? The timing of this revelation is also telling. Sister Wives has entered a new era, with 3 of Kody's 4 marriages collapsing in recent years. Christine, Janelle, and Mary have all left him, leaving only Robin as his remaining wife. As Kody faces public scrutiny and personal loss on screen, it seems he has turned inward, reflecting on the wounds that shaped him long before TLC cameras entered his life. By admitting the pain of his first love and the weight of losing his virginity in such a fraught way, Kody is peeling back a layer of vulnerability that fans rarely see. It's also possible that this confession is his way of explaining, perhaps even justifying, why he is the way he is today. The man fans often accuse of being controlling, inconsistent, and emotionally distant is, at his core, someone who once loved deeply, lost painfully, and never fully recovered. Fans react. The revelation has set social media buzzing. Some fans expressed empathy, saying it finally makes sense why Kody is so rigid and defensive in his marriages. Others mocked him, suggesting that he's simply deflecting blame from his failures as a husband by dredging up old heartbreak. Still, the story resonates because it humanizes him. For all his flaws, Kody Brown is not immune to the universal experience of first love and first heartbreak. Heartbreak, faith, and the man he became. Picking up the pieces after the breakup. When the college romance finally ended, Kody Brown described it as a shattering moment. For many, a breakup in youth is painful but temporary. For Kody, however, it became a defining wound. He had entered the relationship with his entire heart, convinced that this woman could be the partner who would stand beside him through faith, family, and the dreams of building a life. But when she walked away, it was more than just losing a girlfriend. For Kody, it symbolized the collapse of a future he had pictured, a future in which his first love would remain forever. The guilt of premarital intimacy, combined with the sting of rejection, left him struggling with self-worth. He often said that it felt like God had turned his back on him. This sense of failure lit a fire in Kody. Instead of drifting further away from his faith, he doubled down. He wanted redemption, and the only way he believed he could achieve it was through strict obedience to the principles of his religion, even if it meant living a life most Americans would never understand. Turning to faith and the path of polygamy. After college, Kody threw himself into his spiritual journey. His father's polygamous household had always been an example, and now it felt like a blueprint. Where mainstream Mormonism had abandoned polygamy in the 19th century, Kody sought out the Apostolic United Brethren, AUB, a fundamentalist Mormon sect that still practiced it. For Kody, plural marriage was no longer just a cultural inheritance, it was redemption. By becoming a righteous polygamist, he could restore the purity he felt he had lost. Each wife he would eventually take wasn't just a partner. In his mind, it was part of his divine calling, proof that he was still chosen by God despite his past. It is no coincidence that shortly after his college heartbreak, he met and married his first wife Mary in 1990. To outsiders, it looked like a young couple starting their life together. To Kody, it was a chance to re-establish his worth and begin a journey that would make his father proud. Building the plural family. By the mid-1990s, Kody's household began to expand. Janelle and Christine soon joined as his second and third wives, followed later by Robin in 2010. What outsiders often misunderstand is that polygamy wasn't, for Kody, just about desire or romantic conquest. It was about legacy, faith, and control. He wanted to ensure that his life was a shining example of commitment to God's will. And yet, underneath all the layers of doctrine, some fans believed the shadow of his college heartbreak was always there, pushing him to control his relationships more tightly, to never again feel the loss of someone walking away. In many ways, his family structure was both a fortress and a prison. TLC's Sister Wives. A spotlight and a strain. In 2010, TLC introduced the world to Sister Wives. What began as an educational look into the life of a modern polygamist family quickly turned into one of reality television's most fascinating dramas. For Kody, the show was a chance to normalize his lifestyle, to prove to America that his choices weren't strange but spiritual. For the wives, it was both an opportunity and a challenge. They became public figures overnight. But fame also magnified every crack in the family foundation. Arguments that might have stayed private were now broadcast to millions. Financial stress, jealousy, and differing expectations came to the surface. And over time, 3 of Kody's 4 marriages fell apart. When Christine left in 2021, followed by Janelle and Mary in the years after, fans saw a man unraveling. He lashed out, became defensive, and often blamed others. Yet, when he recently confessed about his college heartbreak and virginity, many viewers began to reframe his behavior. Perhaps this was a man still carrying wounds from long before the cameras. Why he calls it devastating even now. For most people, decades pass and first loves fade into distant memory. For Kody, it is still raw enough to describe as devastating. Why? Because it wasn't just about love, it was about identity. That woman represented his first step into adulthood, his first experience of intimacy, and the collapse of his carefully constructed religious ideals. When she left, she didn't just break his heart. She forced him to face the idea that he wasn't perfect, that he wasn't the chosen man he thought he was. That realization never fully healed. Instead, it transformed into a need for control, structure, and constant reassurance that he was still fulfilling God's will. Fans' interpretation. The fan base of Sister Wives is split. Some see this revelation as a rare moment of honesty from Kody, a glimpse of the vulnerable man behind the arrogance. Others think it's an excuse, another way for him to avoid responsibility for the failures of his plural marriage. Social media buzzed after the news. Some wrote, "This finally explains Kody's obsession with being in control. He never got over being left once." Others scoffed, "We all had college heartbreaks. Stop blaming your wives for something that happened 30 years ago." A few sympathized. "Say what you want about him, but that kind of religious guilt is real. He's been punishing himself ever since." No matter which side fans are on, one thing is clear. Kody Brown has once again managed to keep the spotlight firmly on himself. The broader conversation. Kody's confession also touches on larger cultural conversations. In America, the intersection of religion, sexuality, and identity has always been fraught. For those raised in strict faith traditions, losing virginity outside of marriage can carry immense psychological weight. Kody's story highlights how those beliefs don't just shape individual choices, they can echo across an entire lifetime. His story also raises questions about polygamy itself. Did his early heartbreak push him toward plural marriage, not just out of faith but as a way to shield himself from ever depending on one woman again? Was polygamy, for him, a spiritual calling, or a coping mechanism born of fear? The legacy of that first love. Now, decades later, Kody Brown is no longer the confident young man in college. He is a father of 18 children, a reality star whose life has been scrutinized for over a decade, and a man whose marriages are crumbling in the public eye. And yet, when he looks back, it is not just the wives who left him on TV that weigh on his heart. It is still that first woman, that college romance, that moment when he lost both his virginity and his sense of spiritual purity. He admits it was devastating, and fans now see how much of his life since then has been shaped by trying to recover from that one loss. Conclusion: a man still haunted. Kody Brown's story is not just the tale of a polygamist patriarch or a reality TV character. It is the story of a man who, like many, was undone by his first love, but unlike most, never fully healed. That college romance, the woman who walked away, and the spiritual guilt of losing his virginity became the ghosts that followed him into every relationship afterward. His wives felt the shadow of it. His children grew up in the world it created, and his fans now watch the unraveling of a man who still calls that youthful heartbreak devastating. In the end, Kody Brown is proof that our past never truly leaves us. For better or worse, that first love continues to define him.